Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind that Kaito Dan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 5 Episode 6, Known by Its Song. Sorry this is a late one folks, as I was unfortunately too sick to record audio lately, but I am good to go now. But before we start, just a reminder that you should not watch this video without having first seen up to the recent episode through the official sources, so please do so, as also, spoilers are ahead. Let's jump right into some of your comments from last week's review, and while there were a few of you who were feeling that the episode was lacking, there were still some of you guys who were sharing praise. Like Freelancer Amber, who applauded the heart-clenching scene with Ruby and Oscar, as well as giving off some praise for Lindsay's voice acting. While Eomus14 loved Blake's scene, which helped them feel more invested in the drama of that arc. And finally, Slightly Psychotic thinks that there's a very good chance for a redemption for Ilya in the near future, something that I personally think may come true as well. Remember guys, if you want to see your thoughts possibly appear in the next review, make sure you leave your comments down below, and tune in next time to see if they appear next time out. So last week's episode did gain itself a rather mixed reception for some of you, with the heavy chatter going on and what was mentioned being somewhat repeated. But at the same time, we got decent characterization, intriguing emotions on view, and build up to some big moments to come. The question now though is, does this new episode, for me, do enough to regain some good form, or was it another fumble? Let's find out. Actually, let's take a little detour before we get started and quickly talk about that episode title. Known by its song is likely based on the phrase, a bird is known by its song, a man by his words. It means that, just like a person can recognize a bird by its call, a person can recognize another by the way they speak. For example, a liar speaks lies, which fits this episode very well given Raven's intentions. We open with everyone's favourite Drunkle Crow out on the rounds trying to recruit any additional huntsmen to aid in recovering Vanal from Raven's tribe. And his first stop is asking this ramen shop owner for the location of a regular customer and a work buddy of Crow's, Shiro 1. But the Piccolo-sounding man is rather tight-lipped as he asks for Crow's connections to Shiro, and the mood doesn't get any better when the owner snaps at Crow over Shiro not paying off his debt, forcing Crow to get out while the getting's good. It's not the best of starts for Crow already, and as he checks off Shiro from his list, we can quickly glimpse at some of the other folks that he's considering for recruitment. Now, there's a lot of new huntsmen and huntresses' names that's shown in this episode, and normally I would go over all their meanings, but since there's so much to talk about in this review already, I'll just go over the ones on Crow's list. First, we got Shiro 1, then there's Blanca Griffin, Boyd Rain, Amethyst Crease, Ivy Alpham, Auri Rivas, Faro Vaccaro, Harkin Lunsford, Shani Florenza, and finally, Heather Shields. Crow believes that these lot would be great allies for such a tough task, but sadly, his luck with recruiting them doesn't improve, as we then see a couple of shots of Crow asking for their locations from the locals. Beyond Crow's comical reactions to each failure, we also get a decent first look at Mistral's lower levels, and even without the bleak rainy weather, you can definitely see this part of the capital isn't as warm or beautiful as the richer, more prosperous half. There's nothing as visually stunning as the sections up above. We've got weapon stalls and Fight Club shenanigans going on, and some of the houses look busted up, with the windows all boarded up like they've been recently burgled. A stark contrast to the finer life up top. A frustrated Crow is now down to the last name on his list, but he doesn't find Heather. Instead, he meets her quiet husband and her young daughter, hoping Crow can tell them where Mommy is. Yeah, that's just simply heartbreaking. Obviously, Heather is most likely dead, and Crow ends this sad situation with an apology and a sullen look. Before we go further, I just gotta sing this scene's praises for giving a short but effective look at how the life of a huntsman isn't all sunshine and rainbows, even if you are not the huntsman in question. It's been touched on before, but you may die, most likely even, and those left behind will be heartbroken, maybe never even finding out what really happened to you. And I love how this scene showcased that, especially with little to no music and the expressions on the family saying more than enough about their pain. Also, Crow doesn't take a drink after that heavy experience, and I may be reaching here, but it made me recall Crow's poison-induced words from the last volume about someone not coming back to Tai. Regardless of if you think he's talking about Summer or Raven, I think that family's loss made him reflect on the similar painful experience that he's seen in the past, to the point that even a drink won't lift his mood. Anyway, Crow goes off to check the kingdom's mission board, and things don't get any better. Several huntsmen and huntresses look to be either missing in action or flat out dead, and it doesn't look like it's just a simple nasty looking trend. Something must be going on. It seems too much of a coincidence that all of Crow's best options and other huntsmen are dead around the same time as the kingdom is on the verge of an attack. My best guess is that Salem is making sure that the White Fang have an easier time destroying the Academy by forcing Leo to send the kingdom's best out on suicide missions against the Grimm. Without these lot around, all the White Fang would have to deal with is any non-contracted huntsman left behind or the folks in the underground, as well as Crow and his lot. Of course, if that is the case, then man, Leo is wrapped right around Salem's finger pretty bad, and it's not painting him in a very good light. Even if it's just out of fear, he's sending many people off to their death. I don't think he's a bad guy, but he's clearly out of his depth, and it's costing him and the kingdom plenty, the more that he submits to Salem's wishes. Will he overcome Salem's grip in the end? Who knows, but if he does survive this, he's going to have to live with the guilt of what he's done for the rest of his life. Shiro 1 is also sadly one of these men that have been killed in this likely setup, and the dark situation is becoming increasingly clearer to Crow. We get more great use of a lot of simple directive touches to show off Crow's crushed emotions without a single word, and that same directive strength is portrayed just as well when Crow heads back to the ramen shop to willingly pay off Shiro's 16,000 lien debt, much to the owner's shock. Crow did this though to clear Shiro's name, the owner understanding that Shiro is gone and he can't defend his own honor in person now. And even if he felt that Shiro was a bad guy, he does quietly mourn the loss. The owner might still be a bit of a scummy person though, as he has a no fauna sign outside of his store. Even in a law-breaking rundown place like this, the faunists will still have their detractors. Though I fear for the guy's safety if any White Fang members see that sign come the assault. Either way, this is a very somber yet very powerful opener, and not only did it have some emotional gut punches, but it's also setting up quite the dilemma for our heroes in a similar issue to the one found in Menagerie. And just like that mess, I'm very curious to see how our heroes will get out of it okay. We then jump over to the other Branwen in time for some tea and truths with Raven, Yang, and Weiss. And the mood is just as tense as it was the last time that we were here. Raven's still in her usual snarky coldness state, Yang isn't up for any of her mother's bullshit or the so-called truth, and even Weiss is dishing out jabs at a kidnapper's attitude. Raven, meanwhile, starts touting that they shouldn't trust what they've been told by Ozpin and Crow over the years to be the complete truth, only a story spun by them to hide secrets from the world that they wish to keep for themselves. Yang is quick to share her faith in her uncle, though Raven tries to break that support down with some of the truths that she's promised to share. Starting with the reveal that unlike Team Ruby, who joined the academies to help make the world a better place, or unlike people like, say, Team Cardinal, who may be in it for the glory or the money, Raven and Crow joined the academy to learn how to kill huntsmen, not become one. Turns out the Branwens were sent to the school by the tribe so they could have an effective counterforce to the huntsmen who kept getting in the way of their raids. What better way to deal with the huntsmen than to have tribe members who were trained in the same way, on top of their training as bandits? That's quite a shocker. A deep personal secret that even Tai or Crow felt that they couldn't share with the kids, and understandably so. But again, Tai, I just gotta ask you, man. What led you to having a kid and a relationship with someone like Raven when you know these dark sides to her? However, since we know Crow is a huntsman currently and he abandoned his tribe, I wonder what led to him giving up on the mission. Was it a moral decision? Perhaps Crow wanting to save lives instead of ending them? Or perhaps it was the more likely option that it was because of the bonds that he made with Summer and Tai. It could even be down to Ozpin, as we then hear that Team Stark gained the headmaster's attention, who then started to give the team some special treatment that is very similar to how he treated Team RWBY. Additional teaching, always being under his watchful eye, and even small favors like turning a blind eye whenever they broke the rules, just like when Ozpin did the same for Team RWBY during their stakeout mission in Volume 2. I suspected that Ozpin had a keen interest in Team Stark, just like he had for Team RWBY given their connections, but it's interesting that he's treated them so similarly as well. Questions and doubts start to form in the young girl's minds, and Raven shares more information that she gained over the years. And even though we know this stuff already, this is all brand new details for Yang and Weiss, who have been out of the loop when it comes to the major conflict. The bandit leader divulges on details such as Ozpin being behind the school's creation, as well as his secret followers in the academies, and the battle between himself and Salem, the leader behind the Grimm. By the way, when Raven is saying all this, we get a pan over her map of Remnant with a focus on the mysterious Dragonland in the northwest, making the possible connection between this place and Salem all the more stronger. Anyway, shocked as she is about everything that she's been told, Yang questions why they should believe Raven. Her mother though is pleased that Yang is starting to listen to her about not just blindingly accepting everything that she's been told up till now, and we get a really cool stare down between the two, which helps the building tension kick up a notch. Yang's emotions are starting to boil the more that Raven is playing with her in terms of her cryptic words and snide remarks, and the firecracker really erupts when Raven finally insults Crow and Tai Yang for being blind fools. Regardless of anything else in this current conversation, Yang won't take anyone insulting her family, especially if it's her runaway mother doing so. And it's here where we finally get Yang venting off about Raven leaving her all those years ago. Yang's barely brought up that topic, focused solely on trying to get to RWBY. But now that her bottled up emotions are starting to squeeze through, everything on her mind is lashing out, even with Vinal threatening her with a very badass looking chakram gun, and Weiss trying her best to cool her friend down. Still, Yang is raging, mad that Raven acts like she knows Yang so well despite never being there for her, and she finally asks why Raven left. And yet, Raven doesn't answer her question. She doesn't clear her name or try to defend herself. Instead, she just carries on about Yang and Weiss needing to see the truth out there in the world with their own eyes. Truths like Salem being a real dangerous threat, and people who can come back from the dead, which, before anyone asks, I personally doubt it means something like Pyrrha or Summer coming back to life. More than likely, she's talking about Ozpin's rebirth curse. There's also the truth that she wants to prove about magic being real, which is then the cue for Raven to take this conversation outside so she can show off what Ozpin did to the Branwins that isn't to do with her semblance, so she can back up her point. As the two kids head out, Raven is nowhere to be seen, which allows Weiss some time to ask if Yang is doing okay. Yay for caring Weiss! Man, it's so good seeing how considerate for others Weiss has become. She's come a long way since Volume 1, and even in such a short moment like this, it says enough about her growth into a warmer person. Though Yang is once again bottling up her emotions, not wanting to talk about her feelings. She just wants to get this over with so she can get to RWBY as soon as possible. If that recent explosion in the tent wasn't already an example, I fear what's going to happen when Yang finally snaps big time, especially depending on what sets her off. If she doesn't find a way to vent off her emotions, then it may come back to bite her in the end. Then the two catch sight of a rather familiar bird flying by that even Yang seems to recall, as she should, as it's likely the very same bird that she saw at the end of Volume 3. And yes, the bird is familiar in more ways than one, as the bird Raven then transforms into the human Raven. Not only do we now have confirmation that Raven can transform just like her brother, and it's got nothing to do with the pair's semblances, but this reveals that Ozpin is the one behind it, through apparently the use of magic. This all but confirms that Ozpin is the wizard from the seasonal mating tale, since he seems to be an origin point for magic in Remnant. Plus, this makes me think back on Salem's quote from last volume when she believed that Crow was killed, saying that the last eye is blinded. Raven and Crow were given this power by Ozpin to be his eyes, flying across the world for scouting missions and goals relating to finding out about Salem. But with Raven being on her own side currently in this larger conflict after her trust in Ozpin was broken, Ozpin only really had Crow left as his remaining eye. So when Salem thought that Crow was dead, she was thinking that Ozpin is now blinded, unable to track or scout her forces to aid his cause. Also, on another side note, that also makes me wonder about Tai Yang. The Branwins were Ozpin's eyes, and the headmaster was likely working with Summer regarding her Silver Eyes power. But what was Tai's part in Ozpin's plans? He seems like a normal guy with nothing really too special about his abilities from what we know about him so far, so was he just dragged along for the ride as the trio's teammate and friend? He's obviously in the know to an extent currently, so I'm curious what his stake is in all of this, about being connected via relationships with the others. Either way, this reveal at least gives us a little more insight as to why Raven isn't the biggest fan of Ozpin. This role allowing Raven to see with her own eyes what's going on in the world, and in her mind, what she saw was reason enough to break off from Ozpin's faction. Back to present events, and once again Yang and Weiss are surprised at the revelations. But just like with the other bits of new info, Raven isn't given out a lot of answers, because she decides that now is the time for Yang to make a decision, as she then summons up her portal to Crow. Yang could stay with Raven and get all the answers she wants, about Ozpin, about the big conflict, and about why Raven left. All of it. It will be a chance for a fresh start between them. Or she could join her sister and Crow in fighting alongside them and aiding Ozpin in what Raven views as an impossible battle that ended many lives in the past already, which could be referring to the fate of Summer, though that's still up for debate. I'll admit, this is a very surprising move by Raven, but at the same time, it's clear that she's working up a scheme involving Yang staying with her. Raven's calling out Ozpin and Crow for withholding information and being so secretive, hoping that Yang sees sense. But what she may not be realizing is that by baiting her daughter with all the details and the promise of making up for lost times, it's saying that she's coming off as too mysterious and untrustworthy to really back up any kind of support for her. In fact, it's kinda hypocritical and insensitive to Yang's feelings, and I want to know what it is that is making Raven think that she can pull this off without first fixing the strained relationship that she has with her daughter. Unless whatever led to her past actions is something extremely personal that she just doesn't want to admit. Or it's something that could paint Raven just as bad as she's trying to portray Ozpin as. Either way, I'm super happy to see that Yang turns her offer down. She's laser focused on being there for her sister. She loves Ruby too much to care about anything else for the time being. And while I'm sure she will be thinking about what Raven said in the future, and she will still want answers as to why she left, all that matters right now is her need to be there for her sister once again, much to Raven's disapproval. But she begrudgingly seems to accept it, keeping the portal up for Yang and Weiss to ride on through, but not before giving Yang one last warning, that she won't be this kind to her the next time that they meet, should they stay on opposing sides. The fact that she's warning Yang does say something about her feelings towards her daughter, giving Yang some courtesy that I doubt she'd offer anyone else. Yet Yang leaves regardless, after saying that Raven wasn't exactly kind this time either. The wounds of her mother leaving, and her attitude since then, still too deep to heal. But it's notable that Raven says, "I know," after she's gone. I've been debating this ever since Raven first welcomed Yang with open arms, but is Raven actually feeling guilty for leaving Yang, or for how she's treated her daughter since then? With how mysterious and distant she is, it's kinda hard to get a good read on what Raven is really feeling. But there may be a part of the bandit that does wish things were different, and thus why she's trying her best to get Yang on her side, regardless of her issues with Ozpin and Crow. Either way, it's a curious end to a very heated and captivating discussion. Over in Mistral, Crow's trying to wrap his head around the Huntsman mystery that he's slowly coming across. But while things seem to be down for Crow at the moment, he's about to get some welcome, if not surprising aid heading his way. Which means that we can head on over to Ruby and the rest of the Ranger gang, setting up a big meal for any help that Crow might have gotten. It's an obvious jovial moment before the emotional payoff, but it's still nice to see the group being all chipper, kinda like the old days back at Beacon. Still, we got a reunion to watch, and yeah, it's a damn good one. Ruby's face says plenty when it comes to seeing Weiss and especially Yang after all this time. Don't forget that the last time she saw Weiss was back before Ruby reached the destroyed Beacon Tower's peak, and when Ruby last saw her sister, they didn't leave on the most happy of memories, Yang telling Ruby to leave her alone in her sorrow, and the little sister leaving saddened with a simple "I love you." Yet, here is her big sister suddenly back in Mistral and back on her feet. So now, it's time for Ruby's emotions to start flowing like her tears, as Ruby starts to apologize for not being there for Yang, for leaving so suddenly, and for not talking to her more. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is that Yang finally comforts her sister with a long overdue hug, and finally sharing her own "I love you," in one of the most genuinely beautiful moments of the entire series. The sisters have finally reunited, and I'm just so damn happy to see this touching scene. This and a reunion with Blake and Yang were the two scenes that I was most looking forward to seeing, and the crewbie didn't disappoint on making it a powerful, loving moment, aided by a lovely piano version of Gold in the background, some pitch-perfect facial expression work, and the flawless acting from both Lindsay and Barbara. I was just as happy as the others were watching the two's embrace, though Weiss has a very small frown at one point as well, obviously missing her sister Winter a lot. But this is a happy moment, and we can't end the episode on that, so let's close out the episode with Weiss welcomed into the hug as well. She's back with the family who missed her and loves her dearly, and with it, Team Ruby is nearly whole once again. Damn it, crewbie, you guys just really love hitting me in the feels box lately, huh? And you do it so damn well too. Not just in the tearful reunion, but across the whole episode, in another well done emotion-packed chapter. Yes, while a lot of what was discussed in the nail-biting scene with Raven and Yang wasn't that in-depth, or it was already known information, but the segment was a well-utilized moment in bringing in Yang and Weiss back to the main story, alongside a new chapter in the pair's personal arcs, and it brought out some of the best character moments seen so far for everyone involved. Yang displayed a lot of what makes her one of, if not my favourite Ruby girl. Her passionate emotions were absorbing to see go back and forth with each new reveal, and I'm glad to be seeing more on how much Raven affected Yang when she left, and how strongly it means for her to be there for Ruby, to care and support for her sister in that motherly way that Yang was missing herself. Weiss was a delight as well that shouldn't be ignored. Her growth from reclusive, selfish Ice Queen to consoling, selfless, dependable friend was on full display in a brief but very lovely moment for her personal arc. I'm very curious though what will happen when the pair ask Crow and Ozpin for more information, especially when they find out that Ozpin is still alive. There's a very good chance that things could get intense as more secrets are revealed, even more so with the likes of Yang, Jean, Oscar, and Ruby involved, as they all have some very highly strung emotions at the moment. Of course, Raven was a major player in this episode, and while being infuriatingly frigid and cutting in her sour and tight-lipped responses, it's really engaging stuff, as we explore every reaction from the young pair and the tug of war between the mother and the daughter. After a long time spent being one of the most thinly explored characters in the series, we're starting to see sides to Raven that make her much more interesting beyond being the badass stoic that we saw on the train back in Volume 2. And I give her voice actress Anna Hullum and the crewbie a lot of credit for making another character in the show with a complex nature to them that makes me want to hate them for what they've done, whilst also making me want to embrace every moment with them on screen to see more rewarding interactions. The episode was bookended by some superb heartfelt scenes, and the episode as a whole was expertly well directed. I came out of it with more than enough smiles and tears to go alongside the theories and intrigue that's bubbling in my mind. While I'm still craving for more in terms of solid details on key narrative elements and character motivations, I'm still pleased with another episode doing so well in its build-up for future moments and its impacts in current events and character focus. Raven and Yang's conflict is only just beginning, and it's already looking more deep than ever before. There's also tons of secrets that's slowly rising to the surface from more than one conflict. We still had a slew of brilliant character dynamics and moments to savor. In terms of the voice acting, it was equally deserving of its high praise, with Anna Hullum, as I said before, at the top of her game, making Raven so goddamn entertaining even as a bit of a bitch. And major props as well to Lindsay for such an honest and pure performance in the closing sweet moments. However, I will be giving my voice acting gold star to Barbara Dunkelman for once again stealing the show with how remarkable she was when giving her all over a multitude of varying emotions, never once coming off as forced or lacking in the meantime. So overall, this was a very positive episode in my book. Even though we're left once again with a lot of questions alongside a handful of answers, I get the vibe that it's all for a purpose, and we still got to see how those details and complications affected those wrapped up in all of it. There's a lot of ways that things can go in the future, and I'm so thankful for that. We're not wise to an obvious outcome, but there's actual concern and suspense forming, and it's unpredictable, and that's so pivotal when building up to an already bookmarked event. This episode was perfect in how it gave me enough to look forward to, while making sure that it stuck the landing on making its own impacts. But those are just my thoughts, time to let me know yours. Were you satisfied with Raven's discussion? What's your take on her past with Ozpin? And how did you feel seeing another RWBY reunion? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons to make sure you get every new video from me as they drop. And follow me on Twitter for updates on anything to do with RWBY, future content from yours truly, and more. But until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.